Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good whatever time it is, wherever you are, whoever you are. Welcome once again to No Nerd Caliber, the show in which we, the folks at Nerd Caliber, talk about things that we like or sometimes dislike within a given aspect of nerddom. And it's our list show in which we will help you understand a little bit more about what we think about some of the things that are cool or not cool, depending upon the subject. And tonight, what we're talking about is our top 3 favorite villains that are robots or cyborgs in any media: film, comics, movies, TVs. I've already said film, books, what have you. Before we get started, let's welcome some people in the chat. Harry Brady, welcome to the show. And I think I just answered your question. That's the topic for tonight. Amanda Huckabee, hi. Welcome to the show. There on the YouTubes. Let's see if we got anybody here on Facebook or Twitch yet. Not yet. So, I'm Rodney Brown. I'm the editor-in-chief of Nerd Caliber, a first-person shooter on Facebook and Instagram as a cosplay photographer. Burley_adopter on Twitter, a couple of other places doing other things. And as I mentioned, tonight's topic is I guess since I'm alone tonight, top 3 favorite villains that are robots or cyborgs in any type of medium. Before we get into my choices, I'm going to start with our promo, as I often do, for our presence on Twitch. We stream these live shows, both the Monday, Tuesday, and the Thursday shows, on YouTube Live, on Facebook Live, where we've got really good interaction. We're trying to grow our presence on Twitch, so if you have a Twitch account, the URL that's right there in front of you, twitch.tv/nerdcaliber, would be a place we'd love to have you visit. And consider following us there and consider interacting with us there if you've got the account. Wherever you want to chat with us and let us know what you think about my picks, about the topics that we talk about, that's fine by us. But we would really love to have one of those be Twitch if you have that account. So, that said, let's get right into it. This is probably going to be a fairly quick show since I am by myself. The very first robot, android, synthetic human being is what they like to be called, or synthetic person, is Ash from the Alien movie, from Alien. The reason Ash is number 3 and not higher on the list, even though I love this character, and Sir Ian Holm is an absolute international treasure as an actor, is that he is not the most evil thing or scary thing in that movie by any stretch of the imagination. Now, he's in here because he is absolutely vital to what happens in the movie. Ash's programming prior to the action that we see in the movie sets up what happens in the movie, and then his actions in attempting to make sure that a specimen of the xenomorph gets back to Earth adds to an awful lot of the things that go terribly, terribly wrong in the movie. And, of course, his revelation about all of that, the way he gets taken out, all of it is just absolutely fantastic. I believe this is the first thing I ever saw Ian Holm in, that I recall anyway. And just immediately went, wow, that guy is incredible. What an amazing actor. And then, of course, everything from Chariots of Fire, the unfortunate Tarzan movie Greystoke, but he was amazing in it as the Belgian that discovers Tarzan, and up through, of course, Priest Cornelius in The Fifth Element, and Bilbo Baggins in the Lord of the Rings trilogy movies. He's absolutely outstanding, and many, many, many other things. Ian Holm's oeuvre, his list of work includes some of what people consider like the snootiest of British literary adaptations, and then like Priest Cornelius, Luc Besson, absolutely insane space opera movies. So he's obviously a very broad and experienced actor, but like right out of the gate, the first thing I saw was him performing Ash in Alien, and I was just, this guy is amazing. Everybody in that movie was, of course, very good. Harry Dean Stanton was just so perfect in that role. But he stood out. It's absolutely fantastic. And again, it would be higher if he was more of the villain of the piece. He is a villain of the piece, but clearly the villain, it's a monster movie, and the monster is the villain in this movie, the Xenomorph. But also kudos to the production designers who created the Lee. Welcome, or Clever. Welcome to the chat in Facebook. I saw the tagline of favorite Cyborg villain, so of course I have to comment. I'm pretty sure I know where you're going with yours. If I expanded this list out to 6 or so, yeah, I'm pretty sure that character would be on there. But I'll let you comment on that, if and when you want to. The production designers who designed the look of this almost organic looking, fluid, dynamic based interior structure of the synthetic humans or synthetic beings in the Alien universe. Yeah, I hope they won an Oscar for that. I don't recall, and I didn't bother looking it up. But that is also perfect. So that added an awful lot to what I took away from Ash in Alien. Wonderfully performed by the actor, wonderfully realized as a synthetic entity by the production people. Just fantastic job. So we're moving on to number 2. And Clever says, Mr. Clever, of course my favorite. But I agree on your thoughts so far. Excellent, thank you. And just let's sort of, I don't have a picture for this, but Mr. Clever is a version of the Matt Smith Doctor Who had been taken over by these sort of, I think they were called cyber mites. They're not nano, they're actually insect-sized, but entities from the Cybermen that took him over and controlled him. And he is, to some extent, part cybernetic organism because of these things that are like attached to his head and so on. And it's a great episode. Clever, correct me if I'm wrong, that's a Neil Gaiman episode? Or series of episodes. Because I think that lasts more than one. But I'm sure you'll let me know in the comments if I've got that wrong. Even if it's not Gaiman, it's wonderfully, wonderfully well written. If you're a Doctor Who fan, that is, I think, my favorite Matt Smith segment of all the Matt Smith Doctor Who. All right, so my number 2. This might not be familiar with too many people, but I'm going to explain why this is higher than Ash and such a good choice, I think. This is, I want to get his family name, Shigamihiro, from the anime Iniashky Last Hero. So Iniashky is the main character of this series, and he is a 50-something man who life has been, tough to him. So he looks like he's in his 70s or 80s. His family doesn't respect him at all. His co-workers don't respect him at all. He is, what in Yiddish would be called a nebbish. Harry Brady, Thor 4 official trailer is out tonight. That is correct, folks. Just I'll throw that in there, even though it doesn't really have anything to do with robots or cyborgs. During the football game tonight, the Thor 4 official commercial, because the football broadcast is not going to allow a 2-minute trailer, comes out, but probably also the official trailer will drop tonight as well. So keep an eye out for that later on, folks. So Iniashky finds out that he's got cancer and he's going to die pretty soon. He doesn't even tell his family because he basically doesn't want to have to deal with the fact that they probably aren't going to care. So he goes off to a park in the middle of the night, possibly thinking about taking care of things himself. And he doesn't have to because an invisible thing falls out of space and absolutely obliterates him. So it turns out it's an alien spacecraft, and you hear, while he's essentially dead, the voices of some of these aliens, and they're arguing about what to do about the fact that they killed people. This was an accident. They had absolutely no intention of, even getting into Earth's atmosphere, much less crashing in Tokyo. So they got to figure out what they did. They killed an indigenous person on this alien planet. And one of them says, look, let's just, we can't do anything other than we'll rebuild their bodies and put their minds in it. So get them, rebuild their robot body and let's just go with it. And somebody says, the only schemes or schematics that we have are for combat robots. And the commanding voice says, I don't care, get it done. So Iniashky wakes up, and he feels a little weird, but also he feels like better than he ever has in his life. Although he still looks exactly the same. A 50-year-old man who looks like he's in his 70s, and he of course winds up getting at another night winds up in a park where some guy is getting beaten up and mugged, and he just automatically finally is, because he's feeling so good, he finally gets sick of it and he thinks he can do something about it. And his arms open up and weapons pop out and he stops them. Keeps himself from completely obliterating all of them, but he stops them. Well, as it turns out, he wasn't the only one up on that hill. And a high school student, Hitto, was up there and gets killed as well. The problem is, Hitto is a borderline or burgeoning psychopath. And the act of discovering that he has a robotic body, because he figures it out really quickly, essentially is the trigger and just pushes him over the edge. He is a full-on psychopath. And this anime portrays a charming, completely under-the-radar psychopath better than anything I've seen. Hiro has a best friend and they play games together and they talk about manga, and he loves his mom, and to feel human now that he's a robot, he goes out and finds families at night that have their doors unlocked, enters their house, and basically does a Yu Yu Hakusho finger gun. One of his weapons is that he can shoot people without actually shooting people. He just points at them, and if he says bang, all of the effects of being shot happen to them. Hole appears in their forehead, blasts out the back of their skull, splatter, blood, everything, but no bullet is used. There's no bullet, there's no casing, there's no nothing. It's just like they were shot with something that didn't exist. And Hiro just goes around and does this every night because he is a frighteningly charming, when he's in high school and with his mom, psychopath. If somebody gave Ted Bundy a robotic body, this is what Ted Bundy would do and what he would be like. It's just chilling, absolutely chilling. And the series, the anime series and the manga that it's based off of, pulls no punches in portraying just how cruel, completely emotionlessly, callously cruel Hiro is. He kills all the family, not even a second of hesitation. The first one, he kills the mom in the kitchen. Dad is in the bathtub with a small child. I can't remember if it's a boy or a girl, which is a Japanese custom. Parents bathing with their small children. And he shoots the dad and shoots the kid. It's just horrifying. And of course, Hiro, or Iniashky, decides that since he has this ability and he has seen what he can do with it in, helping people who are being hurt, he decides to become, a hero. Or an agent of justice. He decides he's going to use this new body to help people. And he discovers, as everybody does, this, these murders make it to the news really quickly because nobody can figure out what's going on. And he decides to try to figure out what's happening. He winds up revealing that one of his abilities is that he can heal people, like bring them back from the dead, heal. And that becomes a news story. So Hitto actually finds out about Iniashky before Iniashky finds out about Hitto. And that leads to a big conflict, which is one of the best animated robot superhero villain battles. It's unbelievable. The detail whenever their bodies sort of open up to the weapons is very Jeff Darrow like. If you're familiar with Jeff Darrow's insanely super detailed comic book work, it's like that. It's just nuts. The anime was made by Mappa, which is an amazing studio. I believe this was the first thing Mappa ever did that was completely 3D CGI, and it's some of the best 3D CGI made to look like 2D animation that I've ever seen. Right out of the park, they just killed it. So if you have not seen Inuyashiki, even if you're not an anime fan, if you like robot combats, a very complex story, very complex protagonist, Inuyashiki is not exactly what you would call the coolest protagonist out there, and a truly terrifying antagonist. Then I can't recommend Inuyashiki Last Hero enough. I believe it's available on Amazon right now. I'm not sure who else has it for streaming. But yeah, go watch that, folks. All right. My honorable mention, it's got to be, of course, Barry Dillon from Archer. So Barry starts out as a human. He is and this is in the very first season, he is an agent for the competing, or one of the competing sort of independent mercenary spy agencies like Archer's group was, which was called ISIS initially before terrorists took over that title. This organization is called Odin. It's based out, well, it's internationally based, but one of its offices is in Moscow. And in the course of Archer's first meeting with Barry, he does some things that gets Barry, absolutely reasonably, understandably to hate him. And ultimately gets Barry badly injured in, both of their attempts to escape from, I'm not sure if they call them Soviet or Russian. The world that they're in is a very anachronistic one. It is kind of like Spy Family, in which it's mostly looks like it's like the 1960s spy movies, but there's also much more advanced technology. And it could even be earlier because, Krieger here in the shot is a former Nazi scientist. So, timeline just doesn't make a lot of sense, and that's fine. It's a comedy. So Barry comes back, later episodes with like this bionic arm, and doesn't go well for him. He comes back with an entirely bionic lower body. Eventually, he is essentially just a robot with, a human brain. And he is one of the best recurring character villains in any nerd entertainment. He's charming. He absolutely gives you the sense that he could probably kill Archer if Archer wasn't just so ridiculously lucky and or had a team around him that, I can't say cares for him, but at least, works with him. But it just doesn't ever quite work out that way for poor Barry. And if you don't watch Archer, you're not going to get why this is such a cool robotic cyborg villain. But if you do, you know Barry, or other Barry. There's a point where Barry kind of, once he's completely robotic except his mind, he actually becomes like a dissociative identity disorder person. He can switch back and forth between Barry, who still mostly hates Archer, but isn't a absolutely murderous killing machine, and other Barry, as he calls him, which is the absolutely murderous killing machine version of Barry. Like wiping out an entire space station worth of researchers at one point. So he's a wonderful character, really interesting, very funny. Cannot recommend Archer alone, the series itself, enough, but certainly can't recommend Barry as a cyborg villain enough. He's perfect. All right, with that, we are coming up to my number one choice, and like I said, this is going to be a pretty short episode because it's just me, but how could it be anything other than Ultron, and I mean comic book Ultron? Ultron's background, his story, how he was made, what they've done with him since then is just amazing. He was created in the comics by Hank Pym, not Tony Stark, but the concept was roughly the same. He was created when his mind was based on Hank Pym's own brain patterns. And he very quickly became an independent intelligence, developed a god complex in which he realized that his creator, who could be thought of as a more powerful god than he is because his creator created him, has to go. Because he is a god, or he is the god in his mind. He created Vision in the comics. Ultron made Vision to be an enemy of the Avengers. And when Vision first shows up, he is fighting the Avengers. He created all sorts of other characters. Mostly he does a Bride of Frankenstein thing and creates mates for himself. The first one, Jocasta, is based on Janet Van Dyne, or Janet Pym, because Hank used his own brain patterns to initially create Ultron. His love of Janet, or at least desire for Janet, is part of that. And so Ultron winds up developing some sort of feelings, at least of needing possession of Janet. And so he creates Jocasta using Janet's brain patterns. Jocasta turns on him like Vision did, and becomes a member of the Avengers, and it's actually a really interesting character. And later on, he creates another robotic mate named Alchema that was based on Mockingbird, Bobby Morse, on her brain patterns. There have been multiple incarnations of Ultron. When he dies, another one will pop up, and they always have a different designation, Ultron 16, Ultron 17. There was an Ultron that actually wound up accepting that Hank Pym was his creator, and almost establishing a sort of fatherly respect for him, who sacrifices himself to save the Avengers in one story run. So there was a good Ultron, canonically, not like Age of Ultron, which is an alternate future history type story, like the X-Men's Days of Future Past. But it's canon. In the comic book arc, there was a good Ultron. That was only one version. Most of the Ultrons are absolutely monomaniacally evil and want to destroy at least Hank Pym, usually the Avengers for being associated with him or protecting him, and often pretty much all organic life. Um, and he's almost achieved each of those goals many, many times. At one point, and I believe this is the current state of Ultron slash Hank Pym, he actually merged with Hank Pym. And starts calling himself Ultron Pym. And that's a story arc where Iron Man creates an Ultron Buster armor. Oh, by the way, Ultron was the very first character to ever use adamantium as part of his kit. It was never actually stated that Wolverine's claws were adamantium until after Ultron was created. Well, Wolverine comes after Ultron anyway. Ultron was created in the late 60s. So as it stands right now, after he was absorbed into Ultron, Hank Pym essentially died. There is no Hank Pym left at all. And I think where it stands right now that Ultron is captured and is in this sort of coffin that is like vibranium and magic sealed up until they can figure out what to do with him. Because they've thrown him in the sun and he keeps coming back. They did a very good job of explaining that at one point, that apparently, and I'm not sure how much of this has been left in, but Ultron, when he creates any of his android beings that he creates, he leaves a command within them that they have to resurrect the next version of Ultron. And that was really smart. When that storyline came up, and you could, how does Ultron keep coming back? He keeps dying. They gave a plausible reason for why that happens. But Ultron has killed, in the canonical timeline, and of course many of them have come back, but he's killed plenty of Avengers. He's killed plenty of people. He has taken over an entire planet. I'm trying to think of where. This is a very long article here, and anyway, I can't think of the name of the planet, but he has taken over an entire planet. Oh, Saiph, Saiph, where every living being on the planet has been converted into an Ultroid, an Ultron soldier. So making them essentially a cyborg. And one would assume hundreds of millions, if not billions of people on this planet. And ultimately, in that storyline, he captured the Silver Surfer. Which, if you don't know the Silver Surfer, the movie version is a tenth as powerful as the Surfer really is. The Surfer was a Herald of Galactus and he's incredibly powerful. Captured the Silver Surfer and was putting the Soul Stone in his head before Ultron was stopped. So Ultron is the best ongoing robotic or cyborg villain in the Marvel Comics universe, hands down, bar none. Which is one of the reasons why the version of him in the MCU was kind of disappointing. And I think part of that was, the writing, making him quippy, and funny. Logically, it makes sense because he was based on Tony Stark's brain patterns, and that's Tony Stark. But it really undercut the sense of menace. They could certainly have portrayed the very angry Stark that occasionally shows up as being the only personality aspect that Ultron lets out. They didn't need to make him a jokester. So yeah, the version from the comic books is the Ultron. It's the one to study. It's the one to read about. You could go all the way back to 1968, I believe is when he was created, and read all of those stories. The design changed a lot. His 1968 version has again, logically looking, spindly arms, like, his forearms are two metallic sections, like a, radius and ulna. And I get it. That was supposed to be, I guess, scary, a robotic skeleton kind of thing. But yeah, luckily they gave him a somewhat more humanoid body, with more humanoid dimensions as it went on. But yeah, so Ultron, that's the top one, and that's my final choice. So, what do we got coming up, folks? Tomorrow night, of course, is Nerd Week Live. Got a lot of topics, some very interesting trailers that have dropped, Stranger Things, and so on. So definitely tune in tomorrow for all of the topics that we'll be doing tomorrow night. And as Harry Brady pointed out, I'm absolutely sure that the Thor 4 trailer will be on the list. We will not have a full-fat spoiler chat on Thursday because I'm running the photo department at Anime Boston. I'm going to be there Thursday all day. We have like a meeting that would normally take place during the time of the show. So, yeah, not going to happen. Next week, Anime Octane is our Monday show, and that show is going to be on the Netflix fairly short 5-episode anime Vampire in the Garden, which looks really good. And then Full Fat Spoiler Chat that next week. We're going to move what would have been this week's, and hence the robots and cyborgs in the title of this show, to next week, and that will be Netflix's Love, Death, and Robots, Season 3. Volume 3, they call it. Each one they call a volume. So, if you haven't seen it, you got plenty of time to catch up on all of those nice, short, wonderful things. Everything I've seen so far says this is as good as the first volume, if not better. So I'm really looking forward to it. The artwork is insane. I'm just really excited about seeing that. So we'll see you at one of those shows. We'll see you at an upcoming con like Anime Boston. If you're going to be there, I'll be running the photo department out of the cosplay suite. The cosplay photo suite, which is room 102. So if you do wind up going into the community row hall and seeing our table, I'm not going to be there. Our press team will be there, but we won't be doing photos there. We'll be doing photos in the cosplay suite. The photos will go up on Nerd Caliber and Anime Boston, both of them free for people to check out. So we'll see you at that con, which, by the way, in case you don't know, is still proof of vaccine and masks all the time. So we'll see you at that con. We'll see you at another upcoming show. In the meantime, folks, enjoy this beautiful weather we've been having, and please do stay safe.